Hello and welcome to part 3 of this video of migrating from Windows to Linux. In this video we are going to be talking about this device here. This is the Brunner CLSE-NG control yoke. This is a force feedback yoke. People who have watched part 2 of my video will see that I've failed to install the drivers. But in this video we are going to be seeing how to install the drivers correctly and getting this to work in force feedback mode. So the first place we want to start at is the Brunner Innovation website. And here you can see what their position on Linux and Mac support is. It is a .NET application and it needs to run under Windows. So the CLS2SIM application is not designed to run under Linux. But it says here that Xplane itself does support Linux and Macs, and we have updated the plugin to work with Linux and Mac. As you can see, this is the key phrase here. You have to run Xplane on a different machine under Linux or Mac to the CLS2SIM application. So what they're suggesting is that you have a separate computer. However, I have found a way of managing to run CLS2SIM directly on Linux on the same computer as Xplane. So before we install CLS2SIM, the first thing we need to do is install wine. That is accomplished with this command here, sudo apt install wine. And that is now installed. So what is wine? Well, wine is basically an interface which allows Windows applications to run in Linux. Now there is one other thing that we need to run, and that is Winetricks. We need to install that. So we can achieve that using the command sudo apt get install Winetricks. So then once you've installed Winetricks and wine, you do not have a .wine folder here just yet because we haven't actually run wine. So what we're going to do is browse to our utilities folder. Now what we can do is run this exe file. So you cannot run the exe file just by double clicking it. It doesn't run like that. So what we need to do is run the exe file with a prefix of wine, like so. So at this point it's just creating a .wine folder, and now we've got CLS2SIM set up. Click on next. It is looking for a program files directory. I'll show you where that is, but we're not going to install into it. Go to .wine. There is your C drive and there's your program files. We're not going to install there though. So we'll just click on browse and we'll go to the / folder, and then we'll go to home and then Anthony Dyer. Click on OK. Click on next. Use with Xplane. Click on install. So now it will try and install the Xplane plugin. So we'll browse to the Xplane folder. Xplane 12. Click on OK. Before I go any further in, let's go to Xplane 12. It will be looking for an xplane.exe file. By default in Linux, it will not have an xplane.exe file. So what you need to do is right click, create a new document, empty file. Then just rename that empty file to x-plane.exe. Once you've done that, it will find the Xplane 12 folder and say it's valid. So that's finished, and that's finished. Now we go into CLS2SIM folder, plugin installers, plugin for Linux. That's your XPL file. You want to extract that back into the Xplane folder. Go to resources, plugins. Check that it has been installed. If it hasn't been installed, extract it here. So that is CLS2SIM installed. You should get some shortcuts on your desktop. All you need to do is run these shortcuts. Let's see if they work. What you'll find is that they will not work. Often you get an error message saying .NET environment not installed. So in this instance, what we want to do is go and have a look at wine uninstaller. You can see we've got Brunner installed here, but we do not have .NET installed. So this is where Winetricks comes into play. What we want to do is install .NET 4.8. Before I go into that, I just want to show you something else. We already have .NET version 9 installed. This is installed natively. This is not installed using Wine, but this does not make any difference. So what we want to do is install .NET version 4.8. So this is looking very promising. We'll just accept the license terms and install. I've done this attempt many different times. I've tried with .NET version 4.03. I've tried with .NET version 4.5, and in both instances it did not work. I found it did, however, work with version 4.8. So that's what we are going to try and do just now. So that is now complete. So now what we're going to do is just type in Winetricks uninstaller or Wine uninstaller one more time just to see that it's installed. So there we go. Version 4.03 is installed, which is a bit odd considering I've installed version 4.08, but okay, let's see how this works. A fatal error. Okay. So this was the problem that I had all the time. I've got a feeling you've got to install .NET 4, then .NET 4.5, and then .NET 4.8. That's the only thing that I found that worked here. Okay, so that's .NET 4.5 installed. I'll just have a look at Wine uninstaller. And we've got version 4.5 there. So now I think we can install version 4.8. So that is 4.8 complete. And I'll just run Wine uninstaller just to check that. Indeed, we've got version 4.8 there. So now I'll just try this one more time. This is looking very good indeed. So now we have got success. So that was a tricky install, and it took me at least 3 evenings to figure this one out. You have to install .NET 4.03 first by using Winetricks .NET 4.0, then .NET 4.5, and then .NET 4.8. Now, at any point in this process, you may find yourself getting completely tangled up, and you may find yourself being unable to uninstall .NET if you've done things in the wrong order. If that is the case, all you need to do is uninstall Wine and remove your .wine directory, and you start again. But now we have got CLS2Sim running, let's go and take a closer look. So what we have got here is CLS2Sim. It's the very first thing you will see. We'll have a look at the English. This is your warnings. We just confirm we've read and understood that. I'm sure you've done that plenty of times before. Click on next, and then we will start auto detection. So at this point, you want to have your Brunner detect plugged in, and we will start auto detection, and there is nothing there. So nothing is showing up here at all. So what we tend to do, you just get stuck in a loop with retrying. Just click on the X here, and then you say you have got a Yoke joystick, and we want the CLS Yoke here. Click on Save Hardware, and it's trying to connect using Ethernet. If we go to File and then Settings, you go to USB, what do you see? Absolutely nothing. This is the bit where we need a few Linux tricks. So this is the bit where Linux comes into play, and this is something where you will not find any documentation with Brunner. In fact, all of what I've shown here so far is not supported by Brunner. So in this instance, what we need to do is give permission for the device to actually be invoked by other programs. Let's go and take a look at that in a bit more detail. all devices which are connected to your Linux machine, including hard drives, are all defined in what's known as the dev folder. So Linux is a bit different to Windows in that we don't have a registry. We have individual files and folders to define everything. Now, if I unplug the device, I just removed the USB, you'll see that JS1 disappeared, and you'll see that event 7 also disappeared. So we know that as far as inputs are concerned, I'll just plug this back in. There we go. As far as inputs concerned, we know where event number 7 is. But the thing about the force feedback joystick is that it's not just an input device, we also have outputs to this device. So in this instance, we need to go back into the parent folder. And in here, we've got these items here. They are called hydro files. And if I unplug them one more time, you can see that some of the hydro files actually disappeared. I'll plug it back in just so we can see. I believe it's hydro number 3 and 4 in this instance. Plug them back in. There you go. So what we can do now, so it's hydro 4. I'll scroll down until we find some recognizable information. There we go, Brunner Electronic AG. And in here, we've got attributes for ID product and ID vendor. Now, those people who watched my previous video, part 2, will know we had a similar issue when it came to the Thrustmaster rudder pedals. Now, I've already made rules for this, but there are some subtle differences. Here are my rules for Brunner. But what we are going to do is we are going to make rules from scratch because there are some subtle differences which I need to take you through. So you can't just simply copy and paste files. You need to log in as root. So what we're going to do is copy. We're going to paste. And we're going to rename. We're going to call it Brunner rules. We're going to copy that. And then shift insert. And then we're going to do sudo nano brunner.rules. So there are a few issues that we need to change. So first of all, we need to change the kernel. And we need to change it to hydro. And we need to delete subsystems altogether because it's not in the device input folder, and we want to look for the attributes. So let's go and find the attributes now. Now you can see it's ID/product here, but if you look up here, you can see it's ID product. So we need to. So in here, we need to type in ID product, and then we need to type in 008B. So the difference between ID/product and ID product cost me quite a few hours last night. So ID vendor, again, watch the syntax, and then 25BB. Now the mode in this instance is 0666. The documentation which I read suggested 0660. So I'll just change that to O. So now we exit. So that should work. And I emphasize the word should, but it doesn't. We have to reboot the machine. So now that we've rebooted, let's just run the Brunner CLS2Sim application again. We go to File, Settings. You can still see there is no USB device. There is one thing which is missing. Let's go into here and let's type in wine reg edit. So we still have a Windows registry for items related to Microsoft Windows in terms of wine. So what we need to do is we need to go to HKey local machine. We need to go to System. we need to go to current control set. We need to go to services. We need to go to wine bus down here. We need to create a new D word. That D word is called enable space STL. We want it to have a value of 0. So what this will do is that it will prevent the Windows fake machine from enabling a particular backend. So now that we've done that, we should be able to restart CLS to sim, and it should just work. So let's go. Oh, there is one little detail I need to just show you as well. Make sure the start input is not 0. A value of 3, as we've seen here, should be sufficient. So let's restart CLS to sim. Let's go to File. Let's go to Settings. And what do we have here? We have got our CLS NG Yoke. So this is a great success. So let's click on OK. And now let's click on Connect. Here we have got a result. This is absolutely fantastic. At this stage, we should be cooking on gas. Now, if you excuse the pun, I really should say that I should stay on brand and say we're cooking on induction stoves, but that's just me. What we're going to do is we're going to stop this CLS to sim, this Brunner interface. So now it's completely floppy. It is not actuated by any motors whatsoever. If we reinitialize it, so it is working. We've got the interface with Brunner working. So let's go back in and let's see how Xplane is reacting to this. So the point I want to make here is that the device recognized here will be absolutely sufficient. As you can see, we've already got roll and pitch calibrated, and that's what I calibrated before we even got CLS2Sim installed. You do not need a virtual joystick to be installed, and I do not know how to install a virtual joystick on Linux, but this is going to be absolutely fantastic. This will be absolutely fine. So now what we're going to do is just simply initiate a brand new flight using the Cessna Skyhawk. As you can see, we are now on the runway, and let's just have a look here. Let's click on Connect. And what you see here is that this was pulled forward. So this tells me that we've now got some proper interaction between the force feedback on Xplane and the Brunner force feedback yoke. So of course, profile managers we will have to look at. And as you can see, if we go to effects, you can see here that the yoke is pulled forward by elevator weight. And that's exactly what you saw just now on the video. So what we're going to do is just quit Xplane for the time being. Now, one thing I just want to demonstrate is that we will go on to our Windows file system. So this is a dual boot machine. I've got full access to my Windows file system in terms of reading. So we'll just go onto Program Files, x86, look up Brunner Electronic, CLS2Sim. We want to have settings, I think. And then we want profiles. And then CLS. And then what we want to do, copy all these profiles which I have used previously. And we want to put it into our CLS2Sim in Linux. So we want to go to Settings, Profiles, CLS, and then we will paste. Then we'll go back, and we'll go back here. And then we will, I don't think you can do that. I think we have to quit and then restart. So we have got some profiles here. I'll just hit connect one more time. And I think I have to have Xplane running before I can do anything. So that is the next thing I want to do. But you can just see we've now got all of our profiles in here. Now, one of the things I want to just comment on briefly, I haven't done a follow-up video on my Brunner, but previous people who watched my Brunner Yoke, the initial review, knew that I was using G clamps. I got these off Amazon for about £11, and it took a long time to find a G clamp which looked like this. So previously, when you look for G clamps, you end up with a list which looks just like all of these options, and none of these are suitable for what you want to do. What I found was that this company here, Donau Electronic G clamps, they're the business. So that's $10.99. And it's just a shame that clamps like this are not included in the Brunner control yoke by default. You have to go and find these. And it took a long time, a lot of searching for me to find this, when I was just inundated with G clamps which look more like this. So that's a bit of a pest. Well, of course, I've got this far in terms of demonstrating what how to get the Brunner working on Linux. We need to go for a little flight and just see how it works. See whether it's any different to how it was on Windows. So here we are, we're set up on X-Plane, so we'll just hit connect for simulation. I always get this message in the top right corner, deprecated data ref. I've not found any way of getting rid of that, and I've downloaded the latest version of CLSE Sim, and there have been later versions since then. I don't think any of them fix this. So what we're going to do is start the engine, and we will I'll also just reduce the volume here and just make sure that my desktop audio is not feeding through into here. So first things first, I advance the throttle. This should start popping back. So it's caught in the slipstream. There you go. Isn't that good? So now I'm just going to go for a quick flight, and I'm just going to demonstrate a few things in terms of the force. So one of the things I want to just demonstrate is what the force looks like. This is this bar here, and how it changes with roll. So as you can see, that's full roll left and right, and you can see the force isn't reaching the limits there at all. We will go for a spin. Now excuse the frame rates on this. It seems to be very slow when I've got OBS Studio running. I do not know why. So we'll just take off. Everything feels quite light at the moment. You can see that the forces are more reactive with smaller inputs now. So I will just try and increase speed. You can see here much smaller inputs, and now I'm getting much bigger force feedback here. If I try and pitch down, pitch up, I can feel a lot more resistance, and you can just pitch that, adjust the trim, and that works just fine. So we're just going to land this now onto runway 16 at Aberdeen Airport. Bit of flaps will do me. Get my speed down before I run out of runway. There we go. Landing way down the runway, but that doesn't matter. It's just a quick flight. So now the force feedback is much lighter, and we can just slow right down. I think that's the end of the test. Excellent. So I'll just move that out of the way. I'll just apply the parking brake and do that. Many people are faced with the prospect of running out of Windows 10 support by the end of this year. And there isn't any announcement about pricing for extended security updates for home users, but there have been price announcements for academic and commercial users. So you're left with various choices. You can roll the dice with security updates. You can upgrade to Windows 11 if you want, or you can go the Linux route. Your other alternatives, of course, involve going offline or just rolling the dice and taking your chances with virus threats on an unpatched Windows 10. I think a lot more people this year are going to be going over to the Linux environment. And it is reassuring that I have found a solution which works for expensive hardware, which I paid over £1,000 for 5 years ago. It's a very good piece of hardware, and I'm absolutely delighted and thrilled that I've managed to get it to work in Linux. Now, Linux is a mixed bag. If you want to go down the straight and narrow path of familiar applications such as LibreOffice and GIMP, lots of free open source applications, you will have a great time with Linux. But if you have very specific application needs which only work in Windows, there's going to be a lot of rolling up the sleeves. And I started this video with my jumper on, and I've taken my jumper off because I've been getting too hot trying to solve all of these problems. And this is the second time I've been trying to solve the problem, and I still wasn't able to get it right the first time round. And it goes to show, yes, you need to have a lot of persistence and a lot of patience, but you will get there. And there are small, subtle differences which make the difference between success and failure. And as we saw in this instance, .NET installations and what you should be installing in terms of .NET make all the difference. So that's it as far as a guide on how to get this migrated over to Linux. So I'd like to thank you all for watching, and I'll talk to you again very soon.